What does a messy office have in common with your kids' toys everywhere in the living room? None of them should be a part of your video conference calls. You need to look great. You need a green screen. Let me show you how it's done. How did songs from long ago come up? What was the context? Hi, I'm Billy Davis. I'm a lawyer who's spent years defending clients in business and industry from lawsuits. In that whole time, I've never met anybody who's enjoyed being sued, which is why I teach management and employees the skills necessary to mitigate their litigation risk. Now, I use a lot of technology in my practice, and I'm making these videos to share what I've learned over the years. This is the third video in a three-part series I've made to help anyone look better on video conference calls on platforms such as Zoom, Microsoft Teams, WebEx, and others. In my last two videos, I covered some tips on how to improve your video appearance by paying attention to your camera position, adjusting light from the windows, and using desk lamps in order to light the scene appropriately. I'd encourage you to check out those videos if you haven't seen them already. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use a green screen to make it appear as if you're at another location. This can be particularly useful if the location where you are isn't really an optimal location for the presentation you want to give. You can also use a green screen to do a very dynamic video presentation with words and video appearing behind you magically. I'm going to be teaching you techniques of how to use green screens specifically for video presentations and video conference calls. If you're interested in learning advanced green screen techniques to do movie-type special effects, there are some great videos that will teach you how to do that on YouTube, made by some great people. But we're going to focus strictly on video conference calls and video presentations. So let's get started. A green screen is a uniform green background. The screen is green because the color green is actually the furthest away from the colors that make up typical human skin tones. That's important because a green screen works by using computer software to replace the color green with whatever background you want, whether it be a video or a picture or text behind you, for instance. Using an actual green screen will produce much better results than some of the fake green screen effects that are available on video conference software such as Zoom. Those fake backgrounds use some very interesting technology, but it's just not quite there yet. Now, in order to keep this video short, I'm not going to cover all of the types of software that you can use to achieve a green screen effect. But I do want you to know that there are several free and easy to use software platforms that will help you achieve this effect. And there are lots of videos on YouTube that will tell you how to connect that software with the particular equipment that you have available to you. What I'm going to present to you today is information that's applicable to any green screen setup, regardless of the equipment or software that you're using. I'm going to tell you how to position yourself and how to light the screen so that you have the most convincing green screen effect possible. Now, in order to create this big green surface behind us, we need to figure out what kind of material we want to use and how we're going to place it. I've seen some folks use inexpensive green vinyl picnic tablecloths that you can buy at places like Party City. I've seen other people actually paint a wall with green paint. I've also seen people use large rolls of green paper that you can buy on Amazon, and they hang onto the wall. Also, you could find a green sheet. Additionally, there are several pre-made green screens that you can buy online. When it comes to hanging the green screen material behind you, if you're fortunate enough to have a wall directly behind you, you can hang the screen material just on the wall. If you don't have a wall directly behind you, then there are inexpensive stands you can purchase online which will hang the green screen behind you temporarily. Now, whatever material you use, you're going to want it to be as flat and wrinkle-free as possible. So if you're going to apply a sheet or paper to the wall, make sure that you stretch it from all corners to minimize any wrinkles. If you're using a fabric screen, you can even iron it or steam it in place in order to release the wrinkles. The reason that wrinkles can cause trouble with green screens is because the wrinkled surface of the green screen reflects light just a little bit differently. And so there will be some portions of the screen that are lighter than other portions which are darker. You see how this portion of the screen looks lighter and this portion of the screen looks darker? That's going to cause some problems when we bring a background in. Let's take a look. You see these strange artifacts that happen as a result of the poor lighting of the screen? The reason why this happens is the computer software keys in on a very specific shade of green and replaces anything that's that shade of green with our chosen background image or video. So then logically, anything that's a different shade of green isn't necessarily going to be replaced by the software, and it will kind of burn through or creep through in that background image, which is what we're seeing here. I can tell you from experience that the screen doesn't need to be perfectly flat, but you should make an effort to try and stretch it as much as you can. You can take a look at the screen I've been using for this presentation and recognize some wrinkles in the back, and it's looked okay. So keep your green screens tight, my friends. One of the ways we can ensure even coloring on the screen is to light the screen separately from the subject. Now, while the easiest thing to do is to use a separate set of lights in order to light the green screen, that's not always an option for everyone based on space and budget constraints. We can use one set of lights to light both the subject and the screen, but we have to be careful that we don't introduce any shadows on the screen. Shadows, of course, will cause one portion of the screen to become darker than the rest of the screen, and that can introduce some artifacting issues in your green screen setup. So this is my setup for doing green screen work in a small environment, and I'm using my Logitech StreamCam, a much smaller camera, in order to be in a smaller environment. Now, the trick about doing green screen work in a small environment is you're generally going to be much closer to the screen. The screen here is just a few inches off my shoulder. When light hits the green screen, it can bounce back and produce a little bit of a green hue on your clothes and the edges of your face. And when you go to key the screen, in other words, when you go to replace the green with the background, that can produce sort of a jagged edge around you and some undesirable effects. If you're using a larger screen for a video presentation, you're going to find that lighting the screen separately is really going to produce the best results. And in order to achieve the best lighting, it's necessary that you put some distance between yourself and the screen. The typical recommendation is 6 feet. Right now, I'm about 6 feet away from the screen behind me. Now, depending on the type of camera you're using and whether or not it has a zoom feature, sitting further away from the screen typically means you're going to need a larger screen because it's going to need to fill up more of the background behind you. Remember though, if your camera doesn't have a zoom feature, just try moving the camera closer to you so the shot gets a little tighter and you can make sure that your green screen fills up the entire background behind you. One nice thing about having some distance from the screen is it makes it easier to use two sets of lights, as I discussed earlier. One set to light the screen and another set to light you. And of course, the lights that I have set up lighting me are a 3-point configuration, which I talked about in one of my earlier videos. One addition I'll make to that lighting setup I described in earlier videos is that when you set your backlight up for green screen use, it's a great idea to have a very bright backlight, because that's really going to help separate you from the screen. So I have a bright backlight that's illuminating the edges of my shoulder, the edges of my hair, and that's going to help prevent some of that green spill from the screen coming back over me. It's going to make the final green screen product look really sharp. So now that we've lit the screen and the subject properly, it's time to pick a background. There's no shortage of backgrounds out there for you to choose, whether it be a static photo, maybe even a photo that you took, or a video. Some folks like to use backgrounds that mimic real life, while others like to use backgrounds for comedic or dramatic effect. Generally speaking, of course, in a professional setting, you're going to want to pick a background that is suitable for your audience. Now, one thing to keep in mind about picking that background is that it's important that you light yourself in a manner similar to what your viewers are going to see in the background. What I mean by that is, if your background is you at a beach, then you should be very brightly lit in the scene. Otherwise, if you're dimly lit, it's going to look odd in the green screen. Let's take a look at what I'm talking about. There's just no way that I'd actually look like this in a sunny environment. I would look more like this. In this shot, I've done the reverse. I'm too brightly lit for the background, and it looks, well, super fake. One thing to keep in mind here is I'm not changing the lights on the green screen. I'm keeping the screen evenly lit the entire time. The only lights that I've changed are the lights, the 3-point lighting setup on me. So you'll want to experiment with the brightness and color temperature settings of your lights in order to light yourself in a way that's appropriate for the background image. And ultimately, if you're having some difficulty doing that, you might consider using video or photo editing software in order to adjust the background image itself and perhaps make it a little darker or a little lighter so that it will complement your existing lighting setup for yourself. What you're looking for is a smooth match so that it looks like you're actually at the background behind you instead of sitting in front of a fake screen. I'll tell you, I had one person ask me about creating a background that looked exactly like their office at work. And my advice to them was to go to that location, go to their office, take a look around at how the lighting looked, take a picture with their cell phone camera and understand what the lighting in the office looked like. Then they took a picture of the office for the background that they wanted. And when they went to their home studio for their video conference calls, they adjusted the lighting in order to make it look like they were sitting in their office. And so when the two images came together, the subject who was lit with lighting that looked similar to his office, plus the background photo that was taken in the office, it looked very natural and very realistic. On a final note, if you're looking for interesting backgrounds, don't ever forget that you can just shoot a picture yourself and use it as a background. Or if you're looking for something more professional, there are great sources on the internet such as Getty Images, Shutterstock, and other stock photography organizations. Well, that'll wrap this video. I really hope you've enjoyed watching it, and I hope you've learned a thing or two that'll help you accomplish whatever it is you're trying to achieve. If you have any questions about any of this, I'd appreciate it if you'd leave a comment below. I love to read the comments, and I'll respond to you. And I would appreciate if you would click that subscribe button, I think it's right there, so you can be notified when I release a new video. The video I'm releasing next week will be all about the equipment I use, why I like it, and where you can get it. Until next time, stay happy, my friends.